We are, Lord, here to worship you with our hearts wide open.
Hi, I'm your host, Reggie Coates, and welcome to the series called Worship Leading Insights, where experienced worship leaders from throughout the greater San Francisco Bay Area and the nation have come together originally to Zoom with the worship team at Valley Christian High School in San Jose, California. But we hope that this will be encouraging and enlightening for you as well. Today we have Elizabeth Hunnicutt Summers. She's a performing artist and also a worship leader at Twin Lakes Church in Aptos, California. Let's listen in.
Hey, it's good to see all of you in this weird Zoom world we're in. My name is Elizabeth, and I am married to a guy named Andrew, and we have a little girl who is 20 months old, and her name is Ruthie, and she's super cute, and just learning how to talk and just running all over the place, and it's super fun.
That sounds good.
And we live at a place called Mount Hermon, which is a Christian camp where my husband is on staff, and I work at a church called Twin Lakes, and it's over in Santa Cruz, and I've been there for a little over 4 years. So I thought I'd just tell you guys a little bit about my journey as a worship leader and songwriter, and then just kind of give you some thoughts for your own worship journey. What kind of grades are we represented here?
All 9 through 12. So,
9 through 12.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I really started my worship journey in high school way back in the day. And I was part of my youth group worship band. And that's really where I learned how to play worship songs and play chords on piano and play with other people. And I think that's really where my heart for that sort of thing first began. Excuse me. I was in choir in school and kind of did all the music things. I took AP music theory, and that's where I wrote my first song. And so was just starting to figure out oh, wow, maybe I've got some talent in music, and it really felt other people affirming that within me. And I know, in high school, we're all trying to kind of figure out what direction am I going, and what is the unique something that I have to offer the world, and really felt like I wanted to do something with music, whether it was teaching or writing or leading worship, which of course at that point looked very different than it does now. So I decided I wanted to study music in college, but unlike now, there weren't worship programs in college. There were sacred music programs where you could learn how to lead a choir and do a handbell choir and, do that sort of thing, which is awesome, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So a lot of my worship journey was kind of figuring out in the midst of a classical music program, how do I translate that to the sort of thing that I wanted to do? And so it gave me a lot of really great foundational things that I still use to this day in knowing how to just approach music and kind of diversify what I do. So in college, I started leading worship for chapel and that sort of thing. I was at a Christian college, and when I was supposed to be practicing voice and piano, I was writing songs in the practice room, and was beginning to have a love for songwriting and started playing little shows at coffee shops and just doing little things here and there, and really felt like God was putting it on my heart to pursue being a worship leader and also being a singer-songwriter. So I would say for most of my career, so to speak, I've pursued both of those things simultaneously and in one way or another. Right out of college, I took a job at a church that was actually like an internship slash job as a worship admin, and was able to learn a ton about just how does worship ministry function in a church? Because by that point I knew kind of how to lead worship, like on a stage, but other than that, how do you deal with people? How do you deal with the inner workings of a church? And so that was really helpful for me to kind of play a supportive role, and then eventually stepped into a worship pastor role at another church. And I've done that for about 18 years now, have led worship professionally in some capacity or another, whether it's part-time or full-time, or in a freelance way. And simultaneously, I have led worship for retreats and conferences. And I think that's how Mr. Coates and I met, was doing something at Mount Hermon.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, leading different churches in worship, and just over the years, I've done a lot of different things and have recorded independently 6 or 7 projects now. I don't remember how many I've done at this point, but something like that. And so have just always gotten a lot of joy out of pursuing music in a variety of different ways. So that's kind of my background on where I'm coming from. I had not lived in Santa Cruz before moving here for this job, and I love it over here and love what I get to do. Here at the church, I am full-time, and then there's another worship pastor, Trent Smith, who is also full-time. And so we get to collaborate and kind of share the leading role here at the church, which is really cool. So there are 3 things that came to mind when Mr. Coates asked me to just kind of share some tips about worship leading. So I'll just kind of throw these at you. Some of it might feel really familiar. That's awesome that you guys are doing the Paul Balash series. He has so much wisdom and is just awesome. So I'm sure you guys are getting a lot out of that. But maybe something in here that I'll say will be new to you. So the first thing I want to encourage you with is to be a servant with your instrument. And I know that we have a lot of different instruments represented. I was told that there's vocalists and guitarists and drummers. And so I just want to stress the importance of being a team player. And I know what it's like to be excited about learning an instrument and like, I want to play all the notes all the time. And I can do this really cool run. So I'm going to, or this cool guitar solo. So I'm just going to like do everything that I can all of the time. But just to remember that like our goal is to be excellent, but also to point people to Jesus, and to not be a distraction, and to also just make each other shine. And this is something that I remind my teams of even now. So it's not like you fully overcome this, but figuring out what it looks like to really listen to each other and give each other moments to shine. And I know for me, when I was first starting out, it was all I could do to just totally focus in on like getting my thing right. And I just want to encourage you to also just pay attention to like, wow, like they're doing something really cool right now. So I'm going to kind of back off of what I'm playing so that person can be heard. And if everybody is approaching it with that mentality, then everybody kind of gets a moment to have their uniqueness shine, which is a really cool thing and really magical when that happens.
That's great.
Do you guys do any work with like putting together worship sets or choosing worship songs? Is that anything you guys?
Well, we have gone over that with Paul Balash's series. He's talked about putting together worship set and even thinking through transitions and things, and how to implement rehearsing that set.
Oh,
But
cool.
so we have looked at it a little bit, but we haven't really experienced that, putting it together
Y-
ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, well, I was just going to give some suggestions around choosing songs,
Yeah.
um,
Great.
because uh, I know it's important to remember uh, to not just pick all of your favorite songs, which, man, I wish we were in a world where I could just like pick everything that I wanted to play, but to remember that in any given situation, we're called as worship leaders to shepherd other people. And so to be mindful of what is going to minister to any given group at any given time. And so being mindful of, is this song singable? You know, most of the people that we lead are not musicians. And so complicated songs are hard. Asking questions like, is this song theological? Does it make sense? There's a lot of songs I listen to that are just kind of like, what? That like the hook is really cool, but I'm not sure what they're talking about. It's like confusing. So making sure you're choosing songs that are clear, making sure that there's a complete diet, I like to say, in the songs that you're playing. I love like ooey gooey, like really personal songs, ballads. I would do those all the time. But, we also need songs that are like upbeat and, a celebration and recognizing joy and, songs that talk about Jesus and songs that exalt God and also songs that talk about that personal relationship. And then with that, also just encouraging you, this has been something that personally has been a challenge for me this year. And there's construction literally happening outside my door right now. So I apologize if it's kind of loud.
Hear the beeping, yeah.
Beep, beep. So one thing I've been wondering this year in the midst of the racial climate we've been in, and I think the reawakening that many of us have had of, wow, there's a lot of injustice in the world, and wondering like, what is my role in helping make that right, and making sure that I am listening to other voices and bringing other things in. And so one thing that I'm personally trying to do when it comes to song selection is diversify the types of songwriters that I'm choosing for the songs, because I kind of did my own experiment and my own research, and the vast majority of songs that we sing at like, your standard evangelical church are almost all written by white men. And to me, that just struck me as like, oh, wow, we're definitely missing out on something in the body of Christ, if that's the only type of voice that we're hearing from. And so I've made an intention of, how do I incorporate, songs written by women, songs written by people of color, to help bring those other voices in, and
cool.
try and create more of a well-rounded diet, so to speak. So, and then the last thing I just want to say is just encouraging you all in the midst of what feels like a really hostile environment right now. I know I've been watching my phone all day, like watching election results come in, but just reminding us all to just be people of character. And at the end of the day, be people who are kind and loving, because you can have all the talent in the world. And I'm sure some of you are like crazy talented. But if you're not loving people, if you're not being kind, if you're not being a servant, if you're not following in the footsteps of Jesus and how you treat people, then, we're kind of missing the point at the end of the day. And so that's my encouragement to you guys.
Wow.
Here we are, Lord, here to worship you with our hearts wide open.